Hello, I'm Gruntilda, welcome back. Following the month-long hiatus from Washer Dryer due to the spooky season dominating the uploads with spooky stuff, as we return now in Decemberween. And rather suitingly, for the Decemberween period, it turns out that the episode we're now up to is on the most Christmassy level of Banjo-Kazooie, Freezeezy Peak. Hopefully we'll be doing this level in no more than 2 parts, with this one being the first of the 2, and once more I stress the word hopefully, both of those parts will be up before Christmas, and that way they remain relevant. And no, don't worry, you're not going to have to wait until Halloween before we get into Mad Monster Mansion, because instead, I plan for this series to return to at least a relatively regular upload schedule. And so, put on your ugly Christmas sweater, make sure you've got a glass of hot cocoa or maybe some eggnog, curl up next to the fire and get ready for Washer Dryer episode whatever, Freezeezy Peak Part 1. Which, I mean technically, has been already playing for the last minute. I think at this stage in the challenge, I've reached a point in which missing any more jiggies will make it so I can't actually possibly pass the game as the Washer Dryer. I think last episode brought us to either within 1 or 2 jiggies of the red zone, or perhaps actually took us over the red zone, but since I record these videos a week and a bit apart, and a lot happens during a week and a bit, I'm not entirely certain as to how close to the red zone we actually are, and in reality it's really quite irrelevant. But Grim, you may well ask, why have you been babbling on about it for 5 or 6 episodes, if now in episode 7 you're going to say that it's entirely irrelevant? Well, because at the start, I thought it would be really cool to actually be able to pass the game entirely as the Washer Dryer, and take down Grunty as the Washer Dryer with everything being hunky-dory, but at this point, I think we can probably extrapolate from the ongoing trends and see that it's almost certainly going to be entirely impossible to do so. Does this mean that at some point I intend to transform back into Banjo-Kazooie in order to get the ungettable jiggies? Well, no, not exactly. I just instead intend to see exactly how far I can get as the Washer Dryer, and if we do end up encountering an unpassable barrier, well, I might have to see if there's any cheats or glitches I can use in order to get past them. I know there's a cheat to remove doors and whatnot, so we might have to give that a shot. But that's when we get to the worst case scenario, and we've reached a point that we literally can't go any further, so we're not there yet, so let's just not talk about it. And while we're not talking about it, the Washer Dryer is currently facing off to defend the Twinklies, which sounds like Twinkies but are not Twinkies, but are no less delicious than Twinkies to Twinkly Munches. This is not an especially difficult challenge, it's a little bit more difficult than normal because the hit detection and timing of the Washer Dryer's attack is so very strange compared to Banjo's, but it's definitely not the most difficult thing I've come up against while doing this Washer Dryer challenge. Fun fact, I've always felt really pressured to do well in this challenge because I just love Christmas so much and I didn't want it to be ruined by having all of the Christmas lights eaten. It never really entered into my head that I should also be concerned for the lights themselves because they're sentient, but the end result was I was still trying to protect them, so I guess it's a wash. I mean, I suppose in the end, if I was just protecting the lights because they're sentient, I would still be in the wrong because I'd be denying the Twinkly Munches their meal, therefore, no doubt, dooming them to starvation, and thereby destabilizing the entire food chain found within Freezeezy Peak. And while I am doing that anyway, at least I'm doing it because I love Christmas, and I want to be awarded with a golden jiggy piece, not because of any misguided moral ideology. So I suppose what I'm saying, kids, is if you're going to destabilize an entire ecosystem, you should probably only do it if you're getting given pieces of a board game for it. But of course, saving a bunch of Twinklies isn't enough, because they're not Twinklies if they don't twinkle. Also, to their credit, they're sort of troopers that they don't even really seem to mind too much that a lot of their Twinklies didn't make it. And so, moving around behind the Twinklies' home, the Christmas tree, and destabilizing the environment a little bit more by killing some native ice cubes, it's about time to hit a really big button. In order to turn on the Christmas tree's lights, you have to throw 3 eggs at it, because I suppose this is How To Basics Guide to Turning On Christmas Trees. And because nothing in life is ever truly easy, this challenge has a third element to it, which is of course a time trial, in that you have to get to the top of the tree before the time runs out. If you celebrate Christmas and you've ever trimmed a tree before, you would know that defending the lights against glass-eating monsters, throwing eggs at a light switch, and quickly climbing a tree are all just part of the usual Christmas tradition. It's actually somewhat impressive just how accurately they were able to adapt the holiday custom for this game. I am quite glad, however, that the Christmas tree in Freezeezy Peak is actually located outside rather than inside, because the usual tradition of flying through the treetop a star 3 times in order to shatter the crystal that is protecting the golden jiggy is rather difficult to do when there's a low-lying ceiling involved. Luckily for us though, in Freezeezy Peak, the skybox is the limit, and so doing this part of the 4-part challenge is not really that difficult. Having done the 3 fly-throughs and the crystal having shattered, this challenge is essentially over, or more of the challenging part of this challenge, because the time limit has now disappeared, and all you have to do is get to the top of the tree, which is not really that much of a difficult task. I am on the way collecting the presents for Boggy's children because, like all collectibles in this game, it's just easier to grab them when you see them, rather than having to double back to get them later. This section in the Christmas tree has always been one of my favourite moments, not only in Freezeezy Peak, but throughout the entirety of Banjo-Kazooie. This is largely, or probably more accurately, entirely, because it reminds me so much of that Chip and Dale Christmas cartoon in which Mickey accidentally cuts down their Christmas tree and brings it inside, and Pluto is all agitated because he realises that there are chipmunks in the tree even though Mickey doesn't. Come to think of it, the reason that Click Clock Woods is one of my favourite levels is because it also reminds me of a Disney cartoon, so I guess I just really like bright colours and the cartoony style, and the more it looks like a Disney cartoon, the more likely I'm going to love it. Still, I don't think even in Disney there was ever a point in which a washer-dryer machine was running around inside a Christmas tree, so when it's weird even by Disney standards, you know you've reached a truly excellent level of surrealism. And speaking of reaching, we've now reached the top of the tree and the Jiggy is now in sight, which means it's about time that this episode is going to come to an end. I hope it's been suitably Christmassy and is helping you get into the holiday spirit. It is that time of year when this channel becomes rather unapologetically Christmas themed, and it seems that it's even Christmas for laundry appliances. The second and third part of Freezeezy Peak will be uploaded over the next few weeks, certainly before Christmas. I'm not sure if I'm going to split it into 2 or 3 parts. It really depends on how many things I have to say about the level, the challenge and Christmas, and also just how much time I have to record each episode, so we'll see how we go. And until then, as always, thanks for watching. I have been and still am Gruntilda, and you have been watching Washer Dry Episode 7 Freezeezy Peak Part 1.